Oh my God! Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers! Tiki here!
And Jacob Wile.
And Jacob Gulliver. Double the Jacob.
And I'm
double
screaming because this is how all the characters in the show talk! That's not going to get annoying at all! All right. With all due respect, folks, we are here to talk the Cuphead show.
Are you looking for fun?
Yeah. Okay, Gulliver, guess what?
What?
I kind of baited you into a conversation where I knew that at least on some level, you and I were going to have some disagreements.
Oh, interesting.
Because I saw your Facebook post on this show, like, why is it so boring? Yeah. And I was like, oh man, here's an opportunity to get like, because I don't know, Jacob, like I don't think this is a bad thing at all. Like on my podcast, I embrace the discourse. I embrace people having discussions where we don't often, where we don't always agree. I feel like, not to name names, but I feel like a certain other one of my co-hosts, he gets a little bit uncomfortable with some discourse when it happens. But I don't know. I feel like me as like a big time animation geek, I don't think this is perfect at all. I actually think it kind of falls apart towards the end, and we'll get into it. But as an animation geek, I think there's definitely a lot of stuff in here that I don't know if you were picking up on, Gulliver, but I don't know. I think I loved about half of this, and the other half to me is, to quote a SpongeBobism, because the show feels very much like SpongeBob. It was mediocre. Gulliver,
I certainly don't think it's like the worst show.
Finished the show.
Sorry, say that again. I kind of talked when you were talking.
No, it's all good. What are your thoughts overall about this now that you finished the whole thing?
I mean, I'll be clear and say that I don't think I enjoyed most of it. But I certainly don't think it's like the worst thing I've ever seen either. I just think that like they had such a rich like source material to pull from. And I think they really like cheapened it and missed the premise of that source material in a way that I think really kind of killed it for me.
Okay.
I think, the original was such this like loving tribute to like the, 1920s and 30s styles of like very early animation. And they handled that really, really well. But it also told like a direct story with very direct stakes. These two guys, get a little too greedy. They make their mistake and they end up losing their soul. And then they make a deal to get other souls for the devil to keep their soul, basically, which is like a good premise. But in this case, like they tease that in the first episode with like, they're playing this game at the carnival, but Cuphead is just fucking good at it. And then like, but it just takes your soul. There's no like morality elements to it. He just plays a game that steals your soul without anybody knowing. And then the rest of the show is them just dicking around with other like random people of the world. And that stake is only kind of addressed, like the devil trying to get the soul, but it wasn't really earned. It was like thefted. Whereas in the original material, they made the deal knowingly, and then they have to do something really hard to get out of it.
All right, interesting take.
It seems like it doesn't really work with that same premise. I also think that like the way the 1930s style like animation really works in the game, the animation style here, aside from like the art style, but like the way that the characters animate and move is a lot more in sync with like like 90s era cartoons. Like they characters physically behave a lot more like Rocko's Modern Life characters or like Ren and Stimpy characters than they do like Betty Boop characters, if that makes sense. With like the weird facial expressions and the way they like move around.
Well, the facial expressions were actually inspired by like old classic cartoons.
Sure, but which era?
Because I'm just saying, like, I feel like the timing of the facial expressions too. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like
Well,
it's kind of a 30s skin on 90s style animation. Is kind of where I'm at.
and that's not necessarily a bad thing in itself.
Sure, yeah, but the source material that it comes from, the Cuphead game, it is absolutely 1930 skin on 1930 style animation.
But people have pointed out though, it's like that kind of story would be kind of hard to adapt into a long form series such as this one. And also that the Moldenhauers did grow up in the '80s, where those kind of cartoons were prevalent as well. So, and they signed up on all this too.
I disagree. I think having like a Monster of the Week sort of format for a show like this would be really easy to do. Where each episode they're trying to get a soul back from one of the.
I mean, it almost kind of feels like they want to do that, where each episode,
right.
like people from the game, kind of come in and out, and it's like,
right.
Oh, you think this is going to be the pork rind episode, but he's kind of just there,
right?
I don't know. I agree with you
to
to a certain extent.
Porkrind was just the shopkeeper in the game. He was never one of the bosses.
Sure,
that's fair.
But they have like the Root Pack, and they have Ribby and Croaks in there who are bosses. I feel like there's one other one that I remember as well, but it's not coming to the top.
The three-headed dragon just kind of pops up for an end tag.
Yeah,
its name is Grim Matchstick.
All right, Jacob Wile, what is your overall thoughts on this?
I'll be more positive than yours, guys, as I thought it was a lot of fun.
All right. And you see, this is exactly why I wanted the three of us specifically on here, is because I knew we'd have I feel like I'm in the middle. Wile is the more positive. Gulliver's a little bit more negative. But you know what? I like that. I like that discourse. Like I said, I'm all for it. So, I actually get really excited when we have podcasts like this with, entirely different perspectives. So,
sure.
All right.
And I think
let's be respectful of everyone. Everyone's opinion is right. Nobody's opinion is wrong. But let's break it down. Where do you guys want to start?
I think for me, the biggest thing is just like the separation of, regardless how you feel about it, the separation of the Cuphead game from the Cuphead show. Because if the Cuphead game did not exist prior to watching this, I don't think I would react the way that I did to it. I think as a whole, it's fine. It's a perfectly reasonable show. Many other shows, in this sort of genre of the kind of goof around kids doing silly stuff, away from the eyes.
I feel like making the characters kids was maybe one of the big kind of first steps in terms of not really gelling with the tone of the game.
They were always they were kids in the show in the game too.
I feel like in the game they came off more kind of just 1930s hooligans.
They were kids. They've always been kids.
Gulliver.
I don't really remember if there was any reference to their age, but
they were always,
certainly youthful.
They always intend to be younger kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked the idea in the game of the sort of whether they're kids or not, the innocence kind of getting swept up in something they didn't quite agree to or understand, and then having to work really hard to work their way out of it. I think there's some morality play elements at work there that made that story work really well, even though it wasn't on screen constantly.
Right.
Which just wasn't really present in this. They, regardless of whether they felt bad about anything or whether they they never tried to do right by each other or do right. They were just oh, the devil's bad, we'll run from him, and oh, well, these guys seem weird, we'll just run away from them. But there wasn't any motivation to become better people or to do anything for the right reason, really. It was just them goofing around most of the time, if that makes sense. And if it existed standalone from the show, or from the game, if it was just a show, I think it'd be fine. It would, I would rank it similarly to, a lot of the stuff that was on the, Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I got to admit, when I played the game, I don't really get wrapped up in the, the overarching story or the morality of it all. To me, it's just it's a boss rush. It's it's not the type of game that I look for a deep story in. And so I guess that might be a dividing point here, where I don't think I care nearly as much about the game not the story not being followed beat by beat, because you could have a monster of the week thing for sure, but I feel like with what this tried to do was kind of like more open up the world and kind of like connect the world together a little bit more. I think the biggest issue here is that too many of the episodes kind of come across as just kind of throwaway, like, well, that funny situation happened.
Mm-hmm.
Which is still kind of true to the 1930s cartoons.
It is true. You know what? I honestly kind of wish that this would have gone just full on, like, instead of trying to have a story at all. Gulliver, let me know if you agree with this. Do you think that maybe just having a series of straight up standalone shorts with different continuities, different scenarios, and all that might have been a better way to go?
Yeah, I think it would have been better with less dialogue. Is what
I agree. I feel like a big flaw here is the fact that they're trying to do the Netflix thing of having the continuity with the devil, but they're also trying to do these like standalone kind of like joke of the week kind of premises. Like, oh my God, Mugman lost his handle and everything. Like that episode is kind of like a weak sauce version of the SpongeBob Ugly episode, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
Hey, Squidward, guess what? We stink. All right. I will say, as far as the main characters go, I did get a crack out of Elder Kettle. Elder Kettle to me was like he was the closest thing the show had to an anchor, because my God, Cuphead and Mugman are Gulliver. I agree with you that it's kind of to say the voices are obnoxious is a little bit of an understatement in some regard. These guys talk too much.
Yeah.
It's almost exactly like what I'm worried about with the Mario movie. It's like sometimes video game characters aren't meant to just be endlessly spouting dialogue.
Yes.
Maybe. Well, it is nice though that they did get several unknown voice actors for this show though too.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the voice actors are relatively unknowns compared to the.
Yep.
So,
yeah, that is good.
It's good that the folks are getting opportunities for sure.
Especially,
I want to talk about the most inspired casting choice for me, and also what led into my favorite episode. Wayne Brady is King Dice.
Everybody is looking forward to that one.
That game show episode, to me, like, if every episode had like kind of like a standalone quality to it that was that good, and I don't even care about continuity, like maybe each episode is like kind of like the premise is that each episode Cuphead is in danger of losing his soul in some way or another, or something like that, something that you can riff off of and do creative scenarios around, but I don't really care about story or overarching themes or characters or anything.
And in like classic cartoons, you wouldn't even know that he would be in danger.
Right. But Gulliver, how do you feel about this episode? Because I thought it was like not even close. I thought it was the easy high watermark. I
definitely thought that episode had the best dialogue in terms of like the way the characters interact with each other and the specific moments where there's like elements of tension. I also felt like that episode got the closest to the feel of the game, because like King Dice is in the game as well, and it's kind of like, he's kind of this broker in between where like he is charismatic and the kids think he's cool, but also he's working for the devil.
Yes,
so like
yes.
There's that element of like, gray line that's really interesting and a fun way to storytell.
I do wish there was more of him though.
Sure, absolutely.
I do too. And Wayne Brady, it's like just from the Chappelle Show sketch alone, I always wanted him to play more bad guys, and I think this was a great opportunity for him to do just that. I think he's really freaking good at it.
I mean, I don't think he should be like one of like the main people out there, considering he only did appear briefly in the game. But even just a couple, maybe they will have him more in the next season because they have confirmed.
I mean, I think his presence and his role in the story as the devil's in between, it's possible that they could give him a pretty good role.
I think he was foreshadowed.
They could do a lot of stuff with that sort of character.
If I remember correctly, his radio show was foreshadowed a couple of times before his official appearance. So I was I think he might have some staying power. I mean, I don't think they'd hire Wayne Brady to only have him appear once.
Yeah, for sure. And just I love just King Dice just desperately trying to throw the games to Cuphead, and Cuphead just being so freaking that to me is it is a little bit of Nickelodeon comedy, to be sure, but I thought it was so funny that it worked. It just to me, it almost kind of felt like what the Animaniacs reboot should have been like,
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the Animaniacs reboot, but this on its own, just I think I laughed more at this one episode than I did any time during the Animaniacs reboot.
Yeah. I do think this show would have benefited from kind of that Animaniacs style formatting where each episode's 15 minutes, but maybe if they did 2, 11-minute episodes in an episode where it's they crunch it down to 2 little bits, the way that Animaniacs episodes usually are. And sometimes 3, I suppose, in Animaniacs, but
Animaniacs, it's usually 2 Yakko, Wacko, and Dot episodes, and then a Pinky and the Brain in the middle.
For sure.
That's usually how it goes.
Well,
something like that would have helped too, with cut some of the kind of the
the
worst parts out.
The original showed easy 4 or 5 different ones.
Well, yeah, the original show was all over the place. I'm talking the reboot.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just saying if you want an example of Animaniacs, watch the original one. But yeah.
And then I also really loved the graveyard episode.
That was actually one of my I picked for one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, that one is totally the animation nerd episode. So Gulliver, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't get quite as much out of it as I did.
There's definitely a lot of early Disney kind of stuff in there.
I also like the 13 skeletons. I think there's some reaction shots that are straight out of stuff like Snow White.
Yep, and there's
Ghosts Ain't Real, and I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was definitely one of the highlights for me as well. It's I'm always kind of a fan of even though I don't do a lot of horror, I've always been interested in horror trappings and stuff like that. So and of course the episode even throws an homage to the Haunted Mansion.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I think Ghosts Ain't Real is a big contender for Haunted Holiday Hijinks this year. I think it's a really good kind of standalone spooky cartoon.
Yeah.
I was also pleased by the sort of Fantasia kind of reference, the Sorcerer's Apprentice reference with the little dancing brushes doing the work for the devil.
right.
That made me happy, and I figured that you would get a kick out of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know me, Gulliver. It's especially now that I'm going back and watching through the entire Walt Disney canon, this is a perfect the timing kind of aligned for me to really appreciate this stuff because all of the early Disney animation is kind of fresh in my head as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but again, just going back to the cons though, I guess with the pros, I do think a lot of the side characters, not just Wayne Brady, but most of the side characters are really, really well cast. And I do think that Elder Kettle, getting back to Elder Kettle, I think he kind of represents, again, kind of the anchor to the madness that is the over-the-top kids who are the main characters. And honestly, with the kids, when it does come to Elder Kettle, I think that's where a lot of the comedy in the show actually works, for me personally.
Yeah, one of the more interesting is when he believed they were trying to kill him.
Right.
It was interesting that they brought it, they referenced the fact that he was even a war veteran and tried to use that. And he even tried to use that to oh, they want to take me, will they?
Elder Kettle basically turned into that fan theory that Kevin McAllister became the Joker when he grew up.
But in the end, he ended up basically going into most of his own traps anyway.
Gulliver, how did you feel about Elder Kettle?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page that you guys are. I felt like the voice acting was a little bit hokey in a few places, but other than that, it was fine. It was a little bit too much in the aw shucks sort of space. where it stopped being like, charming and got hokey.
The thing is, though, it kind of is how I imagined he would sound from the game. Like, it's how I
Sure.
kind of imagine an old-timey tea kettle sounding.
Sure.
I don't think either of you are familiar with this, but his voice sounds like very, very familiar to the voice of the actor who played the mayor in Come From Away, and it is not the same person. Anyways, yeah, I know you don't know. I just want to throw that out there to anyone who might have watched Cuphead and is familiar with Come From Away. I know the Venn diagram on that is probably very small. Anyways.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I do think that the show kind of goes off the rails in the last few episodes, and I think those are honestly kind of some of the worst ones.
Now, that's kind of interesting because one of my other personal favorites is from there's like, I mean, you guys might differ on this, but the Dangerous Mugman episode.
I like the Dangerous Mugman. My only problem with it is that one, out of all the episodes, felt one of the most generic as far as like, this is a premise I have seen done on a lot of shows of like that era that we were talking about.
Well, the problem,
like the main, one of the main characters having a big personality switch and it going well at first, but then it being, a problem. I don't know. I've seen that a lot.
Well, my perspective on stories being told many times over is if they offer a different experience every time, then it's still worthwhile.
I guess what I'm saying, though, is this episode was fun and it played into the tropes pretty well, but I have seen it. It did not feel different for me.
It's not exactly the same experience.
It's not the same experience, but I mean, I'm just saying I could see the plot beats coming a mile away.
Well, that doesn't mean, yeah, but all right.
Anyways,
I also
it was a tough premise for me just because it's like I notice immediately when I'm not wearing my glasses. I find it really hard to believe that they're going that long without noticing. It just feels really unbelievable to me. It's very hard to suspend my disbelief.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's hard to suspend your disbelief in a world full of talking cups.
Sure.
Speaking of can we just talk about the animation? I feel like we haven't done enough lip service to that yet. I mean,
the animation quality is very good.
I think it looks damn good. I mean, I know most of it is probably computers, but man, some of the shots definitely look CG. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the more dynamic that the camera gets, the more I can kind of see the computer effects kind of start to show. But when they're doing kind of more simple shots, and especially when they're trying to emulate stuff like multiplane, I really get into that. I really think some of it looks great.
And I really like the use of the miniature spinning models, like they did.
Yeah,
like they did in the first episode, and then when they did it in the graveyard.
Totally.
There's one in I think the Root Pack episode as well. But yeah, those shots look really nice. There's definitely some moments that are really good animation sight gags as well. One of the earlier episodes, there's a bowling ball rolling around the edge of the cup on Mugman's head, and that's a very good sight gag.
Yeah.
There was some other one as well that I remember, but I can't remember what the specific moment was. But there are some really nice little bits of animation that I'm sure were moments where animators were paying close attention to those fun little details, and those should be celebrated. Absolutely.
I do like the lighting effects that they have. I like those kind of other shows nowadays. They don't really employ heavy lighting effects, but this show really goes out of its way to capture that.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Lighting doesn't really make or break the look of a show, but
you're not wrong. A lot of shows these days just barely have anything when it comes to lighting.
Yeah, but it has a good sense of depth.
Absolutely.
It has theatrical quality to it, and a lot of shows. The trend is to be very, pastel and flat, not use a ton of shadow per se. So I think you're absolutely right that this does do that in a good number of places.
So it does that, as you said, to the 1930s quality of the show, anyway.
Yeah,
and obviously we can't expect them to make a whole show out of pencil, paper, and ink.
Yeah.
But I think it replicated.
If only.
But to do it in a long form series, that would be like astronomically expensive.
No, I know. I totally. Wouldn't it be wild if like someone like Don Bluth managed to achieve that? Like he just came out of retirement. Hey, folks, Dragon's Lair TV show, and guess what? It's all cell animated. Yeah. All of it.
I mean, I'm not one to say like whether cell animation or computer animation is better, because they both have their pros and cons, obviously.
Cell animation is better just from a sheer artistic level, I think, honestly.
I mean, I'm not necessarily, but let's not split hairs.
All right.
I mean, considering you can pretty much create that look in computers nowadays.
No, I realize you can create the look just fine. I'm just saying blood, sweat, and tears has to go into cell animation. Just that's the difference maker for me, is you can literally see the passion being put into it.
I mean, you can see that with a lot of the computer stuff too. I mean, it's not like
they sure spent a lot of rendering time on that shot. I don't know. It just doesn't feel the same.
I mean, they're still colorist, shadist, like in the old days.
Jacob, I hear you. I don't know. Jacob, I will remind you, I have been literally watching through all of the Walt era animated movies right now, so it's like I kind of have a soft spot for cell animation right now. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, I grew up on that kind of stuff too.
I know.
So.
All right.
I'm just saying I can appreciate both sides of the coin.
No, I can too. I feel you. Like, you know how much I love Encanto, and that thing is 3D as hell, so, you know. Anyways.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. I really did not like the last episode. I honestly thought the last episode might have been the worst one of the whole season.
It was kind of...
And the cliffhanger, I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, the cliffhanger sucked so bad.
Yeah, it was really bad, honestly.
They're in jail.
I mean, it's like, wouldn't a better cliffhanger have been like, okay, Cuphead, like, no more excuses this time. You owe the devil your soul, and you're going to hell.
Like, what if it would have been like kind of interesting if like the one of the police officers like was the devil in disguise. And like your bail is your soul.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That the whole ending and just throwing in that third female cup Jacob, she wasn't in the game ever, was she?
Technically, she was
she was a ghost, I think.
Okay.
She was the ghost Miss Chalice.
Yeah.
And then she's going to be in the upcoming DLC as well. She was
Gotcha. Okay.
She was originally created by the brothers for the game.
Okay. I maybe I just didn't get far along into the game, because I think I only got about halfway through before I was like, nah. I didn't even rage quit. I was just kind of like, well, I know my limits, and this is beyond my limits.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's for sure.
It's fun while it lasted.
If you remember the mausoleum and the ghost lady that comes from the chalice when you beat that's her.
No, I don't think I got that far.
I mean, there's one in the first level, so that maybe.
Okay, maybe.
But she was always in the game, just not necessarily in that form, and then she's assuming this form for the new DLC as well. So
gotcha.
She was created for the game, and it's just being repurposed in the show.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I don't think her personality is the same, but
yeah, the personality just kind of feels like they just sort of threw her in there just to have a female cup. I don't know. It just felt a little rushed. Like, I almost kind of feel like if she was going to be the focal point of the finale, you might want to, she could have like popped up in a couple more episodes, not in big roles, but just to establish that she's there,
Like, the episode just kind of starts. I was like, oh no, we broke Elder Kettle's glasses. Then all of a sudden, she just bursts into the optometrist place.
Right. Yeah. The whole last episode felt very rushed from a plot point of view, unfortunately.
I mean, that kind of stuff didn't really even happen in the original cartoons. At least even in original cartoons, they like had the excuse of like, oh, it's just like, not serialized or not random.
Right, and that's honestly why I really think that if they do a season 2 of this, I don't think they're going to go this direction, but I think it'd very much be an improvement if they did go the way of that we're pitching. And, even the episodes have like the title cards and everything, so they could very easily be more standalone than they are. If you wanted to adapt the game like beat by beat, I just feel like they reach kind of like an awkward medium with that, where there's a lot of filler episodes, and then a couple episodes will have plot progression. It's just weird. I really think this would just be better served as just like an animation showcase with, all the episodes just being buck wild and creative, and you don't have to follow a plot. I really think that'd be very helpful for the state of the show.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
right.
agree.
Anything else we want to get in there, guys?
I mean, what else should we discuss?
I wanted more action, I guess. A lot of the action is like them running away from chaos. I wanted them to do more butt kicking like in the game, but the show wasn't really set up in a way to facilitate that. Like, it would have been cool to have some
you just
more,
wanted to see like the boss fights play out, like where you didn't have to sweat through them.
Yeah, I mean I think that's reasonable to ask. Like,
to borrow a quote from a reviewer, at least you don't have to like die 100 times to get through the game or the show.
No, I hear you, Gulliver. I feel like the show could have used at least one big quote unquote boss fight type scene. You know what I mean? It was missing that.
Yeah.
I don't think every episode had to be like that, but it definitely should have at least built to something like that.
Yeah.
We didn't get anything with Cuphead and the biplane either, and those were the levels that made me quit. Not even gonna lie.
Those are tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last one I tried before I stopped was the Candy Lady.
Baroness the castle.
The Baroness von Bon.
Yeah, that one's tough because the different like parts of the battle are out of sequence, like they're randomized.
Yeah,
so sometimes you'd get like one that's really easy right at the beginning and be like, hell yeah, I got this, and then you get two super hard ones back to back, and then you just be like, oh, this sucks. If they randomized in a way they're spaced out evenly, then it was an okay battle to get.
Yeah, the game definitely does have a lot of RNG working with it.
Oh yeah.
I really do want to go back and play the game again after this show. I will say that much.
I mean, whether RNG is like a positive or a negative is, I guess, up to the person playing. But
it's got remote play together if you guys want to play. So just one of us needs to have a copy on Steam, and I do. We could play together online.
I have it on Xbox.
I'm actually going to be pretty busy after this, but maybe some other time. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
I have it on like my Xbox and Windows Live. Unfortunately, I don't have it on Steam.
All right. So I'm just going to shout out a few comments here. Atomic Beast says, "Hi guys, and man, I'm amazed that such a small-time game gets an animated series. I mean, Cuphead started out small, but it blew the hell up. I mean, this game has been like hyped up. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like Cuphead has become one of the icons of indie gaming. So I'm not that surprised that this got made.
Well, Cuphead even got a Mii costume in Smash Bros. Ultimate.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean, it's more deserving than some of the other DLC costumes that got in there. But I'm not gonna say names.
That female Cup might be the Scrappy Doo of Cuphead. I wouldn't go that far. We'll have to see where they go with her. But yeah, it wasn't a good first impression. Also, that ending reminds me a lot of Seinfeld, where the characters are locked up in jail. Man, everyone hated that finale. In fact, season 2 could have been a direct adaptation of the game. I don't know about that. I feel like they've already kind of shot themselves in the foot with a direct adaptation.
Yeah.
All right. I hope to see Hildeberg in season 2. Either of you remember Hildeberg?
Yeah, yep. She's one of the flying levels.
Oh boy,
she's the first flying level.
I know I beat the first one, so yeah.
Yeah, she's
honestly, the flying levels just in general, I would like to see incorporated if there is a season 2.
Mm-hmm. I think the most interesting one would either be the robot or the genie.
Oh, the genie was my favorite. That one was actually
a cool
fun. Yeah. All right.
Jimmy.
Well, apparently I need to go back and play the game.
Yeah, it's a rager, but it can be fun.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think it more survived based on its looks instead of like its actual gameplay.
Super Meat Boy is one of my favorite games of all time, and that thing is a rager too. So it's like sometimes I just dig that kind of stuff.
I'm a big fan of Mirror's Edge, and that one. Some of those levels get real ragey too.
Yeah.
And that's just a parkour game, kind of.
Right, but there's also levels where like there's like 50 people shooting at you with shotguns, and you have to run through the area and not get hurt by them. So like, or like, oh, you can kick this guy in the face, but the longer you spend kicking that guy in the face, the more people with shotguns approach you. So it's definitely one where it's perfect timing every moment through the level. The way that Meat Boy and Cuphead are will really help. It's just so fucking hard to do.
Yeah, the Mirror's Edge, it's not a run and gun, it's a run from guns.
All right.
You can gun, but like, why? You're just wasting time.
Okay, so I'd like to thank Executive and Atomic Beast for joining us in the chat. And I would like to thank the Chinatown sequel, live and in person, the two Jakes. You thought I was going to get through this podcast without mentioning that, but I didn't. All right. Thank you, Jacob Wile. Thank you, Jacob Gulliver. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, y'all.
Ta-da!